All right. Is this allowed? Am I allowed to record this podcast with my shirt off? Yeah, can someone look that up for me in the rule book? Can you record a podcast with your shirt off? Or is that not cool? Wow. Yeah, so it's summer. You can really feel it now. You can really feel it. Uh, I never really realized this when I was younger, but like the way that we're tied to the seasons and you feel summer roll around, like I used to think it's like, oh, it's summer, it's crazy, like I want to do all this stuff. I am in the summer, I am swimming through the summer. Now it's like, no, I am summer. Summer is inside of my being. The reason there's all this energy is because the sun is emitting more energy onto where we are on the earth right now, and we are earth. Like I am a manifestation of earth, just like a tree, just like how the tree is exploding with leaves right now. You can feel that the trees are alive. So are we, right? And we have all this energy in the summer that just wants to come out. July seems to be an intense one, really intense. It's like, I feel like in the fall, in the winter, even in the spring, things are kind of under control in a way. And then in the summer it's like there's just so much energy that there's it's time to do. It's time to be. There's less time to think actually, which is putting me in an interesting place with this podcast because I'm not reading as much of the spiritual texts. I'm not thinking as much about spirituality. I'm kind of just, it feels as though I've just been thrust back into the world, back into full participation, which feels like a good thing. It feels like that's kind of the goal, the idea with spirituality, right? The Zen saying goes, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. Before we undertake a spiritual journey, we're out there participating in the world. We're doing shit. We're doing our jobs. We're doing our relationships. We're doing our duties, our chores. We're doing all this stuff in the world. Then there comes a time where you really go inwards. You really start to think about who you are. You start to think about your conditioned beliefs. You start to think about what is it that I want to do? What is happiness? You start to ponder all of these deep questions, and you kind of have this in between period. It's a spiritual journey where you're not really focusing on chopping the wood and carrying the water. Maybe you're still doing it, but there's really an emphasis on learning, on introspection, on inner growth. Right. And then when that work pays off and you start to blossom, right, that inner work starts to blossom outside, you get right back to chopping wood and carrying water, right? It's like, what else are you going to do after you get enlightened? You still have to chop wood and carry water because we're human beings and we're a part of this earth and we have to survive and we have to love and whatnot. So you can't, the spiritual journey cannot be isolated to the study phase. The study phase is just one part of the spiritual journey, right? The reading, the journaling, the introspection, the meditation, this is an important leg of the journey. But there's a part where you need to take what you've learned and use it in your life. You need to live your life knowing what you now know thanks to the spiritual work you've done inside. So summer to me feels like a season where it is natural to do that. This was by no means intentional on my part whatsoever. It's more that just like with the energy of the sun and the enhanced energy that everyone in the city has because of this increased energy of the sun, it's more like I said, I've been thrust back into the world, just like thrown right into life. All these things are happening. People are getting together. People are doing stuff. And it's not just people. Again, it's the trees. The trees seem to be talking. The trees seem to be dancing more vibrantly. The plants, the animals, everyone, everything is more active. The earth, where we are on the earth, where it's summer, the earth is alive, is expressing itself. Humans are doing the same in our work, in our relationships, in our lives. We're going through a lot of transitions, a lot of change. There's a lot of energy, we seem to have been thrust right back into the world, which is interesting for me as someone who has recently really just taken a long period of kind of isolation, really spending a lot of time alone, really a lot of time introspecting, thinking about spirituality and this sort of thing. So it's just quite the contrast to see and to be aware of. And again, there's this idea that we are aware of everything, right? Nothing's wrong, nothing's right. These concepts only exist for the ego. They're not real. The only thing that is real is what's right here and right now, right? So this phase that I'm in, this phase of seeming to be back in the world, there's no problem that I'm being less spiritual, that I'm reading less and studying less and maybe even meditating less, I will admit. There's no problem, right? I'm watching this whole thing. When I am really tuned in to like listening to Ram Dass lectures and reading new books and my practice of meditation and whatnot, when I'm really tuned into that stuff, I'm still watching myself do that. The awareness is watching myself undergoing this studying process to achieve awakening or enlightenment. And I'm also aware of myself experiencing summer and just being more focused on social relationships and life and activity and work and things like that, and it's all part of the harmonious whole, and it's very beautiful. And everything has its opposite: life, death, pleasure, pain, inactivity, activity, winter, summer, right? This seems to be an observable law of the universe that when we're in a low, there will soon be a high. When we're in a high, there will soon be a low. So the game is to realize this shit is all just fucking happening. We're aware of the whole damn thing. And we can be at peace through all of it. And that peace, what it allows you to do is no matter what phase you're in, you just work with it. You work with what's right in front of you, and that's very beautiful. It's very beautiful to accept what's right in front of you and take it as spiritual food, no matter what it is, no matter what you're experiencing. It's all fuel for your spiritual growth. You accept, embrace what is, work with that, work with this present moment. That's a beautiful place to be, as opposed to judging yourself, or judging the present moment, this is not how this moment should be. It should be something else. I should be somewhere else, right? Then you're in the practice of rejecting what is. What's cool about the spiritual journey is you get to a point where you embrace everything, right? Nothing, you're ready to face anything that comes up in the present moment. You're ready to face it head on because there it is, right? And when you've put in work towards the dissolution of ego, and you're not so obsessed with your self-image, and you're not so obsessed with yourself and maintaining the ego, and the ego will put you to task on so many things to maintain itself, and that consumes so much energy. When you're not worried about maintaining your ego, then you can really dance with the present moment, and whatever comes up, you just face it and you work with it, and it's a high or low or a medium. It's a beautiful place to be, no matter what the present moment looks like. So summer's been summering. I am moving in 10 days to my new apartment that I've talked a bit about. It's fascinating. I've been talking about the apartment move for so long now. And still, even if it's 10 days away, what is my present moment? My present moment is sitting in this apartment. I'm looking at the same room I've recorded all these episodes in. And there is now an awareness that a change is coming. But here I am. And it's interesting to think about, right? The center, if I'm at home, no matter where I am, if I'm at peace, if I'm centered, it's almost as if I'm watching this slideshow, and like soon this room is just going to shift out and it's going to be another room in front of my face, right? And there's a feeling I can connect to where I don't actually have to do anything to make that happen. And there was a phase where there was a lot of actions, a lot of work involved to create this manifestation for myself, but there's also a perspective where it's like, I'm here, I'm centered, my body is doing things, sure, but I'm watching my body do all these things and I'm watching my mind make all these decisions. I can actually just sit back and enjoy the show, right? Isn't that fascinating? Like, there's a force that is not you that is doing a lot, right? Like, what's driving you to make your decisions? What's compelling you to do all these things? It's a deeper force within, and it's really fascinating to become aware of that, and then that force can become louder and louder, and it can take the steering wheel of your life. You can get your ego out of the way. You can panic less, be less anxious, because there is a force. It's undeniable. There's a force there. It's not 100% your ego driving your life, right? There's the same force that brought the earth from having no life to being abundant with life. We're still experiencing that unfolding, that manifestation of earth opening and expanding. And your expansion as a human being, your life path, which involves expansion and it involves growth and it involves change, and it involves you growing from a small human in the literal and in the metaphorical sense to a big human, an expressive human, a human who's beaming out their love and light, right? Your evolution is parallel to the evolution of Earth. This is the nature of things. We flower, we expand. Yeah, I've been thinking about work and stuff. My rent is about to be higher. I'm thinking about money. My ego loves it, right? My ego loves to freak out about money and rent. I'm curious what you guys think about the name. I'm always caught up on like branding stuff, but at least I'm creating through all that overthinking. But I'm starting to feel like, is George Poulos podcast the right name? Like, should I be trying to attract, because this podcast, I do a lot of creative things, but this is a place where I express myself spiritually. And I'm kind of wondering if the name should reflect that. And something that came out very naturally as I've been doing the one-on-one chats with you all, that the name of the one-on-one chats shifted from like one-on-one chat to spiritual chat. And I was like, is that a cool name for the podcast? Spiritual Chats with George Poulos? Because that's kind of what it is, right? And I get a warm feeling when I say that out loud. So I'm curious if you also get that warm feeling when you hear that, Spiritual Chat with George Poulos. Like, if you saw that pop up on your Spotify, would that feel good? So just let me know what you think. Quick request for feedback. I wanted to briefly touch on a camping trip that I had recently. So I've been really into camping and nature recently, and something that has come out of my process of awakening is a deeper, a stronger desire to be in nature, a pull towards nature. This is literally manifesting in a desire to go camping more, right? Because camping, you're really in nature. You're sleeping in the dirt, basically. I prefer to walk around my campsite barefoot. If there's a hiking trail and I can be barefoot, I will be, right? Camping is an integration in nature experience. And what's interesting is it actually took me a while to see it that way, right? I was raised as a city boy. I mean, I should caveat, I was raised in New Jersey, but I was born in Brooklyn, and I was raised by parents who were born and raised in Brooklyn, who were very city-minded, city-oriented, not really nature people, right? So I was not raised to be a nature person, which led to a story, a narrative I had in my mind. And you always have to be careful about any story that you have in your mind about yourself, because that's typically going to limit you. If you have any story at all, it's typically going to limit you. If you want to cling on to any stories, make sure they're expansive ones, right? I am an expansive person. I can do anything. You know, like I had developed a story that I was not a nature person. I'm a city person. I'm more comfortable in the city. I'm uncomfortable in nature. I don't like bugs. I don't like dirt. That's a very limiting story, because it would cause me to stop myself from having natural experiences in nature and integrating with nature, right? And it took me a long time to undo that story. And I really have to shout out one of my ex-girlfriends who I was dating in college. And after college, we took a beautiful cross-country road trip with lots of national parks, and my inner child really enjoyed all that, and that's really where this nature bug started to develop, right? I started to realize, right, and that was always there. My pull to nature was always there, but it was covered up by this story that I'm a city person, and I hadn't really had much experience with nature, so that intuitive pull towards nature was very hidden. But with this ex-girlfriend and also visiting her in her hometown, her family was like a very in tune with nature family. So that was, I'm very, very grateful for that opening that I had with that ex-partner, and that those early experiences, like really integrating with nature, you know, going hiking through the woods, going camping, going in natural bodies of water. And okay, so back then when I was like doing camping and stuff with that ex, I thought like going camping and doing things in nature was like a spectacle. Like I basically treated it as an amusement park. This is a very dualistic view of nature, right? To go and have this nature experience and then you come back to your life. Really, as I see it now, and what I feel when I'm going camping now, and even when I'm I can kind of feel a little bit of it in a New York City park, but I really feel it when I'm out there deep in nature, camping and whatnot. It's not me going to see nature. It's not me going to experience nature. It's me coming back home. It's me reintegrating into what I am. It's an integration with nature. What I feel when I go camping and when I'm walking barefoot in the mud, and when I'm communing with the trees and just surrendering, right? There's this feeling that comes over when you like set up your home base at that campsite, where it's like, okay, I'm here, like I'm fully here. I'm not thinking about going back home anymore. I think I've spoken about my kind of tendency to rush home, which also applies to like social situations, parties. And that tendency to rush home prevents me often from fully surrendering and fully being present in whatever my present circumstance is. So there's something that shifts when I become fully present at the campsite, where it's like, I feel amazing. I feel alive. I feel like something was missing in the city that I've reconnected with. And it's pretty odd now that I'm deep in my awakening experience. It's pretty obvious why. It's because we are of the earth. We are manifestations of the earth. We're no different from blades of grass. We're no different from flowers, from trees. Just because we have mobility and just because we have rational mind does not mean we are separate from earth. We are earth. We are the earth manifesting currently. We are the earth manifesting. So that feeling of peace and being at home that I experience surrounded by nature is because I'm coming back to truth. I'm coming back home where I belong in nature, right? You know, this thing we've done as a rational egoic society. We've put everyone in boxes. We've put everyone in cities. We're quite literally separated from nature. We are in this society very separate from nature, and nature is a spectacle that you can go and experience, but then you come back home. A blaring example of this is that we own the land. That's not right. We are a piece of the land. We are the land. It's very off. It's very backwards and twisted that we think that we can own the land and dominate the land and destroy the land. We're destroying ourselves when we do that, right? We're creating a separation that doesn't exist. The truth of the matter is we are one with nature. And that's why it feels so good to go into like a deep nature setting, is because you reconnect. You really reconnect. You know, sometimes I'll be laying in my box apartment in New York and I'm like, this is not what a human is supposed to be doing. You know, I'm pretty far from, you know, my natural essence, and something in me really comes alive when I'm camping. I think I want to encourage anyone listening who has a story that they're not a nature person to try to challenge that belief, because I believe that is a limiting belief, and there's really something that comes alive when you integrate yourself with nature, talk to the trees, sink into it, stay there as long as you need to so that you can sink into it. Remove that layer that we usually have. It's not you observing, it's not you having this experience. Be there, really be there, and you will feel that power because you're tapping into your natural essence, the fact that you are nature. Camping is very profound, and I'm going to have to go more because I'm starting to get this feeling that something cannot be fulfilled in this city environment. And when I'm here, I'll surrender to this, but there is this feeling that, like, okay, we're kind of collectively thinking about the wrong things here. This hustling, this grinding, these certain obsessions and focuses we have in the city, they're very disharmonious. They're very misaligned with our true essence as human beings. I don't know if I've shared this one before, but here's a relevant and really fascinating vision I had the first time that I took acid. And this was a closed eyes vision, so this all just came to me in the black of my eyes and in my head, in my imagination. But I had this image of where I was a Neanderthal. I still looked like me. I was a Neanderthal, and I caught my reflection in the mirror, right? And as this Neanderthal, I did not have an ego. I did not have a concept of self. So what happened when I saw my reflection in this natural body of water was very fascinating, because I looked at myself in the reflection, and it was not myself. It was this strange figure, this strange human figure that I did not recognize. And something compelled me to stop there and look at it for a moment. And then I simply kept on going and doing what I was doing, right? I've never looked at a mirror the same way again. Let me try to synthesize how profound this was for me. Usually when we look in a mirror, we're not just seeing our human form, right? We're not really seeing reality at all. We are also seeing a complex web of stories that we have about ourselves. When we look in the mirror, we're also seeing our ego, our stories about who we are, who we think we are. We are natural beings. We are not this myriad of ego that we put up in front of ourselves. It's fascinating, and sometimes now when I look in the mirror, I can catch that feeling, that feeling of like, whoa, like this ego, this complex web of ego that I believe is who I am. It's not me at all. Like at the core of it, like I am this kind of Neanderthal, right? This man of earth, this animal body, right? All this ego stuff, that's like a product of civilized man, and it's interesting and all, but it's not who we are in our essence, at our core. Very fascinating image that I got, and I'll never forget that. So this most recent camping trip, second camping trip of the summer, was very beautiful. It was very beautiful, very healing, very healing. I went with my girlfriend, and we had an incredible time. The campsite was connected to a trail, so we didn't have to get in the car at all. Once we got to the campsite, we were in nature. The trail went back into the woods, and this trail connected to this beautiful natural body of water. One of the days we went swimming in it, I felt just this tremendous respect for this huge natural body of water, this lake. Just the incredible magnitude of it. I had a respect for the danger of it. The possibility of drowning. We did swim in it. It was amazing. I felt I was in the almost in the blood of the earth, right? If you think about the earth, the big scale image of the earth, like all that water, it's kind of like the blood of the earth. So I really felt, I feel this already just being in the woods and nature, just kind of being hugged and caressed and surrounded by earth, almost as if I'm in the womb. But that feeling is really amplified in a natural body of water. Really incredible. And then this campsite, this natural body of water, there was a little section of it that was like a public beach with lifeguards. A lot of families from the nearby city came with their kids, and it was fascinating to feel that contrast between like, okay, really integrated in nature, and then going to this public beach. And I'm not trying to be judgmental, just sharing things I observed and felt. And then feeling this feeling that like this public beach was like a resort, like the nature was commodified. So many of the trees were cut down. It just felt like a carnival almost. It just felt like something of that nature was destroyed. And then it's interesting to kind of apply that to, the land as a whole and what we've done as a society to nature. And, it's no wonder the earth is upset with us, because we have decided that we want to dominate nature and control nature and turn nature into a commodity and replace nature with literally cement boxes where you can buy and sell products. I believe we've decided to worship the wrong thing. So it's no wonder the earth is upset. And again, when we choose to destroy nature, we are literally destroying ourselves, because there is no separation, right? There is no duality. We are nature. Nature is our mother. We are nature manifesting. So that camping trip was very beautiful, and I will plan to integrate camping and nature as often as possible into my life. You really, when you're deep in nature, you really start to feel like many of the things you're tangled up in the city, all of your problems are really not important. They're problems based on a society that has missed the mark, right? So they're there, those problems are there, but they're kind of based upon a faulty framework that when you're in nature, you realize how insignificant it all is. But then, speaking from my life path, my karma, then you come back to the city, and then there those problems are again, and then you work with those, right? Before I get into the Q&A for this episode, I think we've got a good juicy question about relationships and love. Reading update. I do like to do these reading updates. I mentioned I haven't really been reading, but I did want to shout out the movie I just watched, Past Lives. It is amazing. If you're vibing with me, I think you're going to really like this movie, because it's pretty rare nowadays for me to like movies, but this movie felt very profound. It deals with concepts such as reincarnation, loving relationships, ideas like fate and who we end up with, and is it fate, and what does it mean, and what about those more fleeting relationships? What do those mean? And these are things I think about constantly. And it was watching that movie, and I took myself there alone on an artist date. I've been trying to implement the weekly artist date again. Watching that movie felt like a warm hug, and I honestly want to see it again. So really, I bring that up because I think that movie will speak to many of you and many of your life experiences with love and relationships. It definitely spoke to me and mine, and it felt like a warm hug. And I am grateful that I took myself to see that movie. So that's a recommendation for you. I'm getting the chills actually thinking about it. I'm like scared to speak about the movie because I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but I highly recommend it. And then I guess let's get into the Q&A. So this question is from a patron. Patreon is a beautiful way to support my work. I post the podcast ad-free every week. And if you ever have a question, you can ask me on Patreon. And with high likelihood, I will address it on this podcast like I'm addressing this question. If I don't get to it, I will answer you with a written response. Hey George, I'm writing because I moved into a new apartment in a new city and I'm feeling lost, and honestly I don't know who else to write to. There's lots of things swirling around my anxious mind right now as I try to find myself again, to establish those practices that I know make me feel like myself in a new space. But the biggest thing on my mind is my relationship. I've been dating someone for over a year now, my first long-term partnership, and I think I'm just really struggling with how to grow within a relationship. I feel like so much of our love is placed on the expectation of a future together, marriage, kids, etc. And I so badly want our love to be focused on the here and now, but I don't know how to change the focus of a relationship like that. I'm just feeling a lot of pressure placed on me to know who I am, to follow a certain path, and to conform to certain expectations. I'm struggling to be the fullest and most expansive version of myself in this partnership, and I'm struggling to love myself as I am. I know I should be so worthy of love for myself and my partner and the people around me, but it's been really hard lately. There's a lot of fear here, fear that I'm not worthy of love, that this relationship won't work, but I think that fear is holding me back from making any actual changes to work towards that love, to find it here. I know that was a lot, and I don't really have a question, but any advice would be really appreciated, or even just knowing that you've read this and hear me is enough. So I'm keeping these anonymous. I think I've settled on that just because the podcast is public. I feel like if it was Patreon only, we could all be more open with each other, but keeping this anonymous, the only reason I said that out loud is because I want to send love to you for asking this question. Thank you. I do hear you. I have read this and I feel it in my heart. So there's that. Okay, so this is significant. This is the kind of work that I have found. Like I'll have similar questions as I grow in my life and in my relationships. I'll have similar questions, and I just want to say that for me, this sort of thing has been like the bulk of my work in growing as a human and figuring out, okay, like, what do I do? Like, do I stay in this relationship, or do I prioritize my own expansion? Like, which is more important? Which is going to be the best for me and for the other? And how do I navigate this, right? And these sorts of questions have led me into therapy, where I have learned a lot about this stuff. And, I never want to claim to be an authority, but I will share what I'm picking up from your question. And the first thing that I want to say is, we want to be in relationships where we can tell the truth. So we want to be able to tell the truth to our partner. And if they can't handle the truth, for me, that's the ultimate red flag, right? If I can't tell the truth, there's no reason for me to be in that relationship. And when I say that, I don't mean I hate that person or I'm going to cut them off. I just mean I don't want to be in a close romantic relationship with someone who is not willing to work with my truth, right? That's a boundary I have for entering a romantic relationship with me. So I say that because you just articulated very beautifully the predicament that you're in. And my first recommendation would be to essentially, if you have not already, describe the predicament exactly how you described it to me to your partner. Be completely upfront and honest about what you're going through. Hiding this within is not going to help anyone, right? If you're trying to work on this internally and you're not sharing it with your partner, this energy is going to get bottled up inside, and eventually it's going to explode, likely in a breakup. This has happened to me in many of my relationships, whether me or my partner were bottling in a predicament, bottling in the truth, not sharing it to the partner to work through it. I've had relationships that ended this way, and that's part of the growing and healing process. But you're asking me this question gives me an indication that maybe you're ready to learn this lesson. The lesson is that every problem that comes up in a relationship should be shared openly, 100% openly, 100% honestly. It doesn't matter if it's going to hurt their feelings. It doesn't matter how attached they are to having kids and getting married. It doesn't matter if this is going to shatter their idea of what the relationship is. You have to tell the truth. 100% you have to tell the truth. So that's my first piece of advice. Describe the predicament as honestly as you did to me to your partner and see where that goes, right? You brought up something interesting that I resonated with a lot. Let me reread it. Right. I'm feeling a lot of pressure placed on me to know who I am, to follow a certain path, and to conform to certain expectations. Here's the thing. I remember a part on my dating journey, my journey with love and relationships, where I didn't know who I was. I wasn't sure what I wanted. That then becomes my truth. My truth is I don't know who I am. I don't know what I want. I'm confused. I'm having doubts about things like monogamy and marriage, and I'm having doubts about things like commitment and planning for the future. All that uncertainty is my truth, right? So when I'm meeting a prospective partner, or if I'm even with my long-term partner, if I'm having these doubts, that's my truth. I feel like there are instances where you don't have to say everything all the time. Like, there doesn't necessarily need to be a real-time flow of your mind activity, right? Because sometimes our mind activity is our ego being insane, and sometimes it's good to meditate first before we have that conversation with our partner. But if I'm really in a period where I'm having doubt and I'm not sure about things like marriage or commitment or monogamy or anything that's kind of expected of me in a relationship, that's my truth, and I need to tell the truth to my partner, and I need to find out if my partner can accept my truth. I don't want to be with anybody who cannot accept my truth, right? And they don't need to accept it instantly, right? If I say my truth, I'm aware that that may cause them to be triggered. That may cause an ego reaction in them. But let's see if we can work through that. Let's see if we can get on the same page. Let's see if we can come together. If ultimately your truth destroys the relationship, it's good that you found that out. You want to, if the truth is going to destroy your relationship, you actually want the relationship to be destroyed so that you can later on find a relationship that can sustain the truth. So you don't have to know. This is a trap I think a lot of us get into. You don't have to know what you want. The beautiful thing about this is when you love yourself, you don't force yourself to know sometimes. Sometimes you just don't know. And when you accept that about yourself, you tell your partner that. You tell the truth. And the beautiful thing about this is that while many people want certainty and want promises and all this stuff, there are people out there who will accept you even when you do not know. And that's very beautiful. That's very beautiful. And sometimes the gravity between two people can sustain uncertainty. It can sustain the truth. That is true love. And that's very, very beautiful. And I also want to say, like, I resonate with you. It sounds like you're in a period of expansion. You mentioned you're in a new apartment. There is change happening. In my view, some people prioritize being in the relationship above all else. That is not my way. My priority is truth and freedom, essentially, right? So if I'm in a period where I'm expanding and changing, if my relationship is prohibiting that, the natural expansion that I'm experiencing, that's not the right relationship. I want to be in a relationship that I can fully expand and express and live and love. I don't want a relationship that makes me feel tense and tight and constricted. I want a relationship that makes me feel wide open, expansive, like I can become who I'm meant to become. Right? And some relationships can't sustain that. Some relationships can only sustain that for a time, and then your expansion sends you off in a different direction, and sometimes that's okay, right? Something that I picked up on in A Course in Miracles, this has really stuck with me, is this idea that the universe or some higher power chooses who we end up in a relationship with. And A Course in Miracles says that the purpose of that romantic relationship is so that the two of you can learn. So that the two of you can learn what you need to learn. And it might be challenging, it might be tough, it might be triggering. Ultimately, that relationship is going to teach both of you tremendously important lessons that the only way you can learn them was by being in that relationship. And sometimes these relationships last a lifetime. That means that there's a lifetime of learning opportunities. That means you guys and your journeys are really in sync, and you're just going to keep learning from each other for the rest of your lives. But sometimes that relationship, as a learning device, it does its job. You've learned everything you can learn from it, and now you're expanding in a different direction, and you need new learning opportunities. And it's not really up to you, but that relationship is going to separate because you've learned everything you can learn from each other. And that's, where in this level of reality, that's where a breakup happens. And I've spoken about breakups on this podcast a lot, but if and when that does happen, it's not a failure. It means the relationship has actually succeeded. You've both learned, right? You both have learned what you've needed to, and the time has come to move in a different direction. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? Yeah, so, beautiful question. Really beautiful question that I resonate deeply with. And another thing I just want to say is, right, like in this period that you find yourself in where there is this fear and this doubt and this kind of intense thing that you're going through, just realize that that's okay, that you're going through that, and the intensity of it, that's okay too. And it's okay that you're not sure what to do. It's completely okay. This is a part of life. And, we don't know how long this intensity is going to last, but like guaranteed you're going to come out the other side and it's going to reveal something beautiful. So allow yourself to move through it and don't reject this experience, right? I touched on this idea at the beginning, but whatever your present circumstance is, embrace it, work with it. You're learning from this. How beautiful, right? And you're going to get through this, and it's going to be very beautiful, and you're going to have learned from it. Whether this relationship lasts or not, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. You're learning, you're growing, you're expanding. That's why we embrace the present and we work with it no matter how challenging it is. All right, I think that's it for this episode. I greatly appreciate you all sharing presence with me. Like I said, the Patreon is a great way to support me. I offer one-on-one spiritual chats. Like I said, if I touched on anything in this episode that you want to talk to me about individually, it could be a topic or idea. It could be something you're going through specifically in your journey. I would love to have a one-on-one spiritual chat with you. We can share presence and explore the topic together. All that is linked in the description. Sending love on your journey, on your day, on your week, on your summer. And I'll see you next week.